Well, good morning, everybody. Hey, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming. If you are a guest, hope you enjoy the service today. And I want to welcome everybody in Isani. Thank you so much for being here today. And everybody who's watching us online, it's great to have you join us as well. We are starting a brand new series today, What If? And, the whole purpose for coming to a service, the whole idea about a service and doing the whole church thing is so that every one of us can kind of be challenged and every one of us can have an opportunity to experience and to discover, is God going to be a part of our life, and what can God offer us and what can God do in our life? And I hope, and it is our goal through this series, that you are challenged to just ask yourself, what if? What if we did the things that God is asking us to do? And how could that possibly change our lives? Now, today I'm going to do something that I have some skills and talents that you guys probably are not aware of. This is a very, very, very sharp knife. Matter of fact, it's a razor sharp on the front. But this is the knife that I goof around with, and I just play with this. And I just want you to know that I've handled knife for a long time, and I'm really good at it. So what I'm going to do in just a moment, and I want everybody to see this online and hopefully catch this on the video there. So in Isani you can see this, but what I am going to do is I am going to flip this 10 times. I'm going to put it up in the air and flip it. Now it's spinning fast. You might not be able to count it, but trust me, it's 10 times. And I need to know that, right? And I'm going to catch it on the handle when it comes down. Now I do have, in the back, there is some medical supplies just in case. Just in case I don't make this, but it's going to blow your mind. Because here's the thing. Some of you are thinking, there's no way he could possibly do that. He's half blind, But, if you practice something long enough, you get good at it. So it's going to be 10 times. If I do happen to catch the blade, it is razor sharp. But like I said, we will bandage it up and I'll get through the rest of the message. But are you ready? Well, too bad we don't have a drum roll out here. But 10 times and catch it on the handle. Okay, ready? There's no way I'm going to put my hand in there. There's no way. There's no way I'm going to do that. But, however, here's my point for that kind of thing is this. What if I actually could do that? What if I could? Seriously, if I could, every one of you would leave, and sometime during the week, you would tell your family or coworkers, whatever, you'd sit around and say, I was at church the other day, and you wouldn't believe what the pastor there could do. I mean, he took this razor sharp knife, he flipped it 10 times, he cut it by the handle. Like, that's amazing. You guys would leave here impressed. You'd be so impressed if I could do that. Now, I can't, but what if I could? You'd be extremely, extremely impressed if I could do that. Now, we can discover some of those things in our life that we're not sure about, but we'll be so impressed if they actually do work. But here's what's interesting about human nature. I mean, we kind of all go through this thing is, there is a whole bunch of things that people tell us to do. People give us advice in our life, right? And we don't do them. I mean, we're all aware of this. There's nobody here that's probably not aware of the fact of eating healthy. We've all heard the message. We've been bombarded with diet things and eat healthy and eat your greens and so many servings of fruits and vegetables a day we do. But you know what? So often, I mean, really, so many of us, we don't do that. We don't. And you've probably been told by your doctor, I have been told by mine that, you need to exercise and you really should exercise and this would be good for you. And we're told these things in our life. But so often we don't do them. We don't. And there's even advertisements on TV about, boy, if you just bought this product, your hair would look better. And we're told that this would make a difference in your life. And we don't run out and buy it. Now some do, but for the most part we don't run out and buy it. We don't do all these things. And I think even for things like our time, I think most of us have been told, if you want your kids to grow up really, really good and be well-adjusted kids, you need to spend a lot of time with them. You need to discipline them. Discipline, train a child in the way that they should go. And when they're old, that's, they're not going to forget that. They're going to take that with them. We hear these things. If you want to have a great marriage, spend more time in your marriage. Do some fun things, date night, all this stuff. And we're all we hear all these messages and all this stuff. But honestly, for the most part, we don't do these things. And I wonder, well, Why don't we? You ever just ask yourself, why don't I? How come I don't apply all of these things to my life? Why don't I apply more of these things to my life? How come? Well, it takes too much time. I don't know if I want to spend any money at it. I think we can kind of look at it, well, I don't know. Right? I mean, I don't know. I ask people all the time, hey, do you go to church? No, I don't go to church. Well, how come? I don't know. We're a bunch of idiots. I don't know. I say, well, maybe it's this. Maybe it's really seriously because we believe it doesn't matter. I mean, think about it for a minute. Really think about it. We make these choices, and really deep down, the reason we're saying, I don't know, it's just kind of an excuse to say, because I don't think it really matters. I don't think it's really going to make a difference in my life. Oh, maybe a little, but certainly not a big enough difference to make it worth the time, effort, or money, or changing lifestyle that I have to make. So when we hear about these things, or people tell us to do these things, what we're really feeling on the inside is, I don't think that's going to really matter in my life. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's not going to matter enough. You know what? I'm okay the way I am. No, am I perfect? No, I'm not perfect, but I'm good enough. You know what? I'm healthy enough. I spend enough time with my kids are going to turn out fine. I don't even really do this any different. Because if I do that and I do all this thing you're telling me to do, it's not really going to matter that much. It's not going to change people's lives. It's not going to make me a different person. It's not going to change my life. It's really not going to matter that much. It doesn't make a huge difference in my life. And I think for most of us, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, there's a lot of good things. Do you hear that? Good. I was going to say great and good at the same time. Good things. There's a lot of great things, good things in our lives. And we honestly just go, I don't know. I'm not going to do that. And we don't make a change. We don't do that in our life because we really think it's not that big of a deal. It's not going to matter that much in our life. It's not going to change everything in our life. I know for me, it's been about 10 years. Right? I met this guy in town. Some of you might know him. He's a chiropractor here in town, Dr. Pete Werderman. He goes to church here. It was probably like 10 years ago. I met this guy, and wonderful guy. Always got a smile. I think, what's he doing wrong? He's smiling all the time. I thought, oh, this guy's secretly smoking pot, or something. Just smile. Anyway, so he's like into this total nutrition, total body makeover stuff and everything. And so I've heard over the years, and he's even gotten some people in church to do this juicing thing and detoxing thing and stuff. And I hear this stuff, and because people care, they come and tell me about it, And Dr. Pete himself has shared a couple times, Kevin, it probably really do you good, if you change your eating and do this. And so this whole detoxing thing, and it's detoxing so you don't put crud in your food. So anyway, about 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago or so, I'm watching this documentary on TV, and it's about a guy who had a skin disease, and he's well overweight. So he decides to just live on juice, vegetable. Like he puts all these vegetables into a juicer, and it takes all of the pulp and all of the fiber and everything out of it, and it just juice, just liquid. And he lives on this for 60 days. And it changed his life. Like he's out of medications, all this stuff. You probably saw The Biggest Loser too, where people get off their medications and things like that. So anyway, I decided to do this for 10 days. I know that's hard to believe, so I'd laugh. You? In order to do this, I had to divorce Little Debbie. Little Debbie and I are no longer a couple. She's no longer a part of my life. I will only see her in passing in the grocery store, but we will never have any encounters, probably ever again. However, okay, so I go on this thing. For 10 days, I did nothing but put all these vegetables in this juicer, and it just drank this big cup, 16 ounce, 3 times a day. I would drink this stuff, and I didn't eat anything else. Didn't put nothing in. I didn't cheat even an M&M. I mean, I didn't cheat a popcorn. Not at all, because I thought, I am going to do this. Because here is the whole point of this. What if it actually made a difference? I mean, what if? I hear these people talking about this stuff. So I did this for 10 days, and I've been done now for about 3 or 4 days. So for the last, 2 weeks, I've been doing this juicing thing, and I just got to tell you what happened. I am a type 2 diabetic, and over a week ago, my blood sugar was so low, I check it 3 times a day, that I stopped taking the medication because I didn't need it. I stopped taking the medication. Now listen to this. This is a true story, okay? True story. Happened to me. I stopped taking the medication, and my blood sugar has been in the 90s for over a week. Every time I check it. It's like amazing. I mean, totally in the normal range. I lost 15 pounds. If this is a family show, right? But it was all crap, right? Anyway, I lost 15 pounds. I've been taking a Prilosec twice a day since in my 20s, and I haven't taken that for over a week. No heartburn, no acid reflux, whatever like that. So here's my whole point of this story. Is so often, you and I, we look at these things in our life and we really think, yeah, I don't know. It's what we say. I don't know why I don't do that. But I think deep down it's like because we think it doesn't matter. It's not going to make a difference. But here's the whole enlightening part of this. But what if it did? I mean, just what if we tried it like I did, and what if it really made a difference? Which it did. It's life-changing. It's so different. And the point is this. This goes from beyond just physical things. It goes into the spiritual realm as well. Spiritually. What if? What if you and I did the things that God says to do? Because every one of us here, just like we've heard other good things for our life, every one of us here have heard things about, God says to do this. God's pretty direct sometimes, even it says, hey, you know what? I'm telling you to do this. If you are a believer in me, if you're a follower of me, do this. I want you to live your life like this, and I want you to do this. But so often, every one of us would say, but we don't always do it. If I were to ask you right now, God says that He wants you to give part of your finances and serve with your time. And if you're not, and I know so many of you are, but if you're not, I would ask you, well, how come you're not? Here's what your answer would probably be. I don't know. Well, I don't know. But it really comes down to this, probably because you don't believe it really matters. You don't believe it would make a difference. You don't believe it would change your life and the life of others. And we kind of just don't believe it. What if it did? I mean, what if it really did? There's so many things that we just don't follow God. You know what? For all of us, there's things that I don't know why I don't do that. What about God's morality? I mean, all of us know, even if you're a regular church attender or not, we all know that God says, don't lie, don't cheat, don't gossip, don't talk negatively behind other people's backs. God says, most of us know moral-wise what God says, between a marriage and a man and a woman and, other sexual activity outside of that is, He says, don't do that. And most of us know those things. But, if you're not following some of those things, how come? I don't know. Just because we don't think it matters. Because we don't think it's going to really make a difference in our life. But what if? But what if it did? What if we tried it and we discovered it will change our life for the better? What if we discovered that God knows what He's talking about? How about this? What if we did it and found out that God knows something we don't know? The Bible puts it this way, and it's just so direct. I love it. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. Listen, God is smarter than I am. God is smarter than you are. God knows. You know what? Even God's foolishness is wiser than we could probably be. God knows more than we know. So what if we actually did what God said? And what if it really was life-changing? It would change our lives. There's so many stories in the Bible that I think people, before they experience God moving in their life, before they experience life change, they probably went through the very same thing that you and I go through. And that is, well, I don't think that's really going to matter. I don't think that'll make a difference. We all go through that. Well, I would change, but I don't think it's really going to make a huge difference in my life. There's a story in the Bible about a guy named Naaman. I wouldn't name your kid that, okay? But his name was Naaman. And he was the leader of an army, right? He was right underneath the king. He was like the king's right-hand man. He brought the army into victory. This guy was amazing. He was a great leader, awesome general. The people loved him. And he even had a whole bunch of people that served him. Even his servants just loved him and respected him so much. But this Naaman guy had leprosy. And you know, leprosy is deadly, especially back then. And this guy had leprosy. So his servants loved him so much, they came to him and they said, Naaman, listen, we care about you. We don't want this leprosy to take your life. We've heard that there's a prophet in Jerusalem. We heard that there's a prophet there, and he hears from God, and God moves through him. And you know, he's kind of like the voice of God. And he has the power of God, and he can heal you. So we think you should go over to Jerusalem. You should make the journey there, and you should see this guy, this prophet. His name is Elijah. So this Naaman, powerful, powerful man, rich, powerful man. Here's where the story goes on. It says, so Naaman went with his horses and his chariots, right, big entourage, and he stopped at the door of Elijah's house. So Naaman, he gets all these people that love him. They say, go see this guy. So he goes there and all of his entourage and all this stuff. And he goes right to Elijah's house. You know, he's important. He goes to Elijah's house. Here's what Elijah does. Elijah sent a messenger to say to him, go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. So here Naaman comes to this little prophet's house, thinking that they're going to do something, and the prophet doesn't even come to the door. I mean, Elisha doesn't even come to the door. He just sends a messenger out there. Oh, yeah, this Naaman's here. Yeah, okay. Go tell him, dunk himself 7 times in the Jordan River. Just go tell him that. He'll be fine. You know, God will heal him and all that stuff. So the messenger goes out there and tells Naaman that. Said, oh, yeah, the prophet said, go dunk yourself 7 times. Here's what he said. But Naaman went away angry and said, in modern terms, he said, what? This lazy bum didn't even come out and see me? Doesn't he know who I am? I mean, I thought he was going to do something important, right? Something big. I mean, some kind of big ceremony. He says, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot, and cure me of my leprosy. He goes on and says this, are not Abana and Pharpar, 2 different rivers, the rivers of Damascus, aren't these rivers better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned away and went off in a rage. So here is this Naaman. He goes to the prophet's house. The prophet doesn't even come out. He sends somebody out there and says, yeah, by the way, God says, okay, through the prophet, God says, listen, Naaman, if you go dunk yourself 7 times in the Jordan River, you'll be healed. You'll be healed and you'll be cleansed. And Naaman's like, what? What difference is it going to make if I dunk myself 7 times in the Jordan River? I mean, like, that's not going to matter. Can you imagine what he's thinking? Can you imagine you and I would probably think the same thing? That it would go through our mind like, really? What? 7 times? Like, what's that going to do? That's ridiculous. That ain't going to make a difference. How in the world's that going to change my life? And even if you're going to pick a river, why would you pick that river? That's a pukey, dumpy river. Like, can't we do something like the Mississippi? It's the mighty Mississippi, you know, or something big, something cool. Because listen, what you're telling me to do, God, in a sense, he's saying to God, God, what you're telling me to do is ridiculous. That ain't going to matter. It ain't going to make a difference. It ain't going to change my life. Why should I do it? And his friends around him say, hey, are you going to go do this? No. How come? I don't know. I mean, same kind of thing. I don't know. Just inside, just thinking, well, because. Because now if he was going to do something great, that'd have been different. If he'd have done something that I think would make sense, that would be different. But you know what? Since he didn't even come out himself and he just said, God said to go do this, I'm not going to do that. How is that? You tell me how that's going to change my life. You tell me how dunking myself 7 times in that stupid little Jordan River, barely over my head in the deepest places, how in the world is that going to make me clean? I'm not going. I'm not going to go do that. No. The people around him, as the story goes, they cared about him. They were trying to encourage him to do it. And he just thought it was ridiculous. Why? Really, why? Because he didn't think it would matter. I mean, what's it going to matter? Sometimes you and I face the very same thing. Really, God tells me to do this? What's that going to matter? How's that going to change my life? It's not going to make any difference. But what if it did? But just what if it did? They finally talked him into it. So he went down and he dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times. As the man of God, as God had told him. And his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. What if this ridiculous thing, this thing that I don't think is going to matter, it's not going to change my life, I don't know how that's going to add up, but what if? What if God knows something we don't know? What if doing what God says would change our life? One more story, New Testament story. It's a great story. I haven't oftentimes thought of it from this guy's perspective. This guy, the whole story starts like this. Saul of Tarsus, some of you know who Saul is. If you don't, I'll just explain. Saul of Tarsus was a Pharisee. And Pharisees were the ones that were really responsible for crucifying Jesus. They had to get the Roman government to do that, but they were against him. When Jesus was doing his ministry, the Pharisees were always, mocking him, and they called him the devil and all kinds of stuff. And Saul was one of these guys. And after Jesus had died and he started the church and the apostles went out and they're starting the ministry and Christianity's growing, this Saul guy wanted to kill Christianity. I mean, he was really, really aggressive and he wanted to stop Christianity. He would go and he would arrest Christian people, Christ followers. He'd arrest them, throw them in prison. He was responsible. He was there when the very first martyr, Stephen, was killed. It was Saul. This Saul guy was just the enemy of the church. And all Christians knew about this Saul, especially the apostles. Like, you stay away from this Saul guy. So Saul is on his way to Damascus to arrest Christian people. And on the way, Jesus reveals himself to him in a great light and talks to him, whatever. Well, anyway, he went blind because of that, so he went into town. So now this Saul, this persecutor, this enemy of Christianity, the one who wants to arrest and murder followers of Jesus, is in Damascus and he's blind. And God comes and talks to a guy named Ananias. And here's what God says to Ananias. The Lord told him, "Go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight." So here, Ananias hears from God. God says, "Ananias, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into town on Straight Street. I want you to find this guy named Saul. I want you to pray for him." Well, as the story goes, Ananias says, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but what Ananias says is this. He kind of argues with God and he says, "Hey, God, this is a trick. This is a trap. There's no way I'm going." He actually reminds me, like, "Hey, God, are you aware of who this is? This is Saul of Tarsus. You get that? I go there, he's going to kill me. He's going to arrest me. This is his way into the church. This is how he's going to find people, and do all this stuff." And so he's afraid. So Ananias is afraid to go pray for this Saul. I can understand that. As a matter of fact, the Bible doesn't say everything that Ananias is thinking, but I can imagine what he's thinking. Why should I go there and risk my life? What difference is it going to make? Oh, so this Saul's going to see again just so he can kill more of us. Wow, there's a good idea. I mean, here Ananias could be or might be, I can imagine thinking, just like many of us would be thinking, okay, God, you just told me to do something. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Why? Because it ain't going to matter. What do you think, you think this guy's going to be a Christian? I mean, really? Come on. He's killing the church. He's murdering people. He's throwing them in jail. He just wants to get to all of us. God, I'm not going to do what you say. Because it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to help my life. It's not going to change this person. I mean, imagine his perspective. God, I'm not going to do what you say because it's not going to change anything. He is still going to be after us. He's still going to do all this stuff. No, I don't want to go. No, I don't want to do what you say. Why? Just because. It ain't going to matter anyway. I'm just going to go do my thing. But what if? What if it absolutely changed history? What if it changed your whole life? What if it changed other people's lives completely? What if? So Ananias decides to go. He decides to go there and pray for him. Ananias went to the house and entered it. Placing his hands on Saul, he said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus who appeared to you on the road as you were coming here has sent me so that you may see again and be filled with the Holy Spirit. You see, even though Ananias was afraid, even though possibly he didn't think anything was going to happen, what if it did? That obedience to what God told him to do changed history. This Saul of Tarsus, this persecutor of the church, becomes an apostle for Jesus Christ. Writes 2/3 of our New Testament Bible that we carry around today. Started more churches around the Mediterranean area than any other one person. I mean, absolutely changed the world. And Ananias could have thought, what's this going to do doing what you say, God? Hey, what if, seriously, what if God knows more than we know? I mean, the Corinthian verse goes back to that. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom. What if the things that you and I think isn't going to matter, isn't going to change my life, not going to make a difference if I do what God says, it's not going to hurt me, it won't change people. What if God knows things we don't know? What if it would change your life? What if it would change your life in every way by doing what God says? Because when you and I think it doesn't matter, it does matter. According to God, it does matter. In this series, what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 weeks and we're going to talk about some very important things that God says for us to do. And we're going to walk through it and ask the question, what if you and I did that? What if we actually did? Even though we think maybe it won't matter, maybe it's not going to make a difference, what if we discover it would change everything? I want to end with just telling this. We're not going to be talking about giving in this series. So I just want to tell you a story about that. So we won't be talking about it. But for me, it was a huge, huge thing. I remember when I was a beginning follower of Jesus. I was in my mid-20s, was married, had some kids. We were broke like most people are at that age. Didn't have much at all. And I went to church and was hearing about this whole idea of giving 10% to God. Because God says He wants us to be generous. God says, the Bible actually says that He wants every one of His followers to give and support His work. And He says, I will bless you. If you give, I will give back to you. And I was challenged with that, and I thought, yeah, really? I'm fine. I'd rather do it on my own. I trust I'll just do myself and God will leave you out of it. Until I actually was challenged enough to say, okay, what if? Seriously, what if? So Sue and I did it together. We decided, we talked about it. We're going to make this commitment. We're going to give 10%. And ever since then, we have never stopped. We're up to 20% now. 20% of our income goes to God. Why? Because I discovered this. God's smarter than me. He is smarter than me. He has proven to us over and over and over again. All of our children give generously and tithe. I mean, they have learned this whole idea that, you know what, God is smarter than we are. And even though we think, well, it's not going to matter, I'll have less money, it ain't going to make a difference. Time after time after time, God has proven His blessing is so true that when we when we do what God says, He honors His word in our life really, and He makes a difference. So last week, my youngest daughter and her husband were tithing and giving to God. And last week, I'm with my daughter, and she says, "Dad, you're not going to believe it. I got to raise my tithe again." Like, that's a bad thing? What do you mean you got to raise it? Oh, we're just making more money. I got to raise my tithe again. You know, oh, well, so you just tell God to turn off the blessing faucet any time. You know, just stop blessing you and you won't have to give more. And it does. And I just want to end with this. One time, I was probably in my late 20s, and I was talking to Sue about it and said, you know what if we just tithe, give 10% of the income, not that we make, but that we want to make? So I did this for 1 year. So you know what? And back then, it's like I want to make $35,000 a year. So we're going to tithe as if we were making $35,000 a year. And I'm not saying it's going to happen to everybody, but I'll tell you this. This is my story. This is what happened to me. The next year, I started making $35,000 a year. And here's the point of this. The whole point is this. God knows more than we know. And when you and I read or hear that God says to do this, it's very easy for us to just pass it off with, well, you know, I'm not going to. Well, why? It's not going to matter. It really ain't going to change much. Really? What if it did? What if it changed everything? Let's end the service with passing it over to Shaheen and Isani. Shaheen, go ahead and close the service there, and we're going to just pray here. Father, I thank you so much for your word telling us things for our life that are good. And I pray, God, for every one of us here that we would grow, that we would be challenged, that we would put our trust in you, that we would follow you in every way of our lives, Lord. Help us to do that. And I pray, Lord, through this series, that you would challenge each one of us to just ask ourselves that question. What if I actually did that? What would happen? Thank you, Father, in your name. Amen.